Peter Hewitt, la-artistino. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Okay, today I have chosen to work in Enchanted Forest. Now, I've been reading the comments and requests that I get every day, my inbox and through my YouTube channel and at la-artistino. And I think what you would like to see is more of me colouring in and explaining what I'm doing along the way. So I thought what we might do today, we'll start off a series where I will go through a page in a book and show you exactly what I'm doing. This will be a multi-part series which I will run so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. I've decided to work in Johanna Basford's Enchanted Forest, as it is a common and popular book, but you can apply my principles to any book that you are working in. I'll be working in pencils. Now, I've been through this book and chosen a picture which I think will meet our needs, and this is the one. I often get asked how I do backgrounds, and this has plenty of scope to do a background in without overwhelming the video with hours and hours of me colouring a background. And it's got lots of details of assorted variety of plants and animals so that you can get a feel for how I plan the picture. And the pencils that I will be using are of course my favourites, Faber-Castell Polychromos, and I'll also be using my Derwent artist pencils. You can use any pencils that you have. My techniques will work just as well for Prismacolor pencils, or even a lot of the budget style pencils that you can buy, such as the Faber-Castell Classics, or even Crayola pencils will work as well. The erasers that I like to use are the little kneaded eraser. You'll see my video I posted previously on the different erasers I use. My little mechanical Derwent eraser and my pencil eraser. The sharpener that I like to use is a little Staedtler metal sharpener. Again, you can use anything that you find works for you. I also think it's important to have a colour chart already drawn out of all your colours for quick reference so that you can quickly match up the colours that you want with the ideas that are in your head. And you will also need a piece of paper just to test out your colours, and another piece of paper to slip in behind the piece of work you plan to work on to protect the previous pages. First of all, it's useful to think of what kind of colours we're going to use for the picture. One thing to think about is what time of the day is it? It's an outdoor picture, so it could be morning, afternoon or night time, and that'll affect the kind of colours that you lay down. This particular picture I'm going to draw as if it's in the middle of the day. Since we've already got the mother duck and her chicks out there, it would suggest that it was daytime. Now, a lot of the colours here already suggest themselves. For instance, you could go green for the frog and for the foliage. The rocks can be either brown or grey. You've got the chest here, you'll be looking at brown wood for that. The sword is silver, so shades of grey with perhaps some blue to make it look a bit shiny. I'm going to do the sky, a sort of a blue, but I'll start with a lighter colour at the horizon and move to a darker blue as I move up, and I'll stop when I get to the circumference of this circle. The water, I'll be looking at more aquatic colours, so sort of a greenish blue teal colour. And again, I'll start off light, perhaps more yellowish at the top, and I'll go down to a more of a darker green at the bottom to suggest depth. I'll start this picture by working on something that I've got a good feeling for, and that is these grasses at the side. I'm going to do them by putting down a lighter layer of, say, yellow down the bottom and moving up the stalk to a bright green to a duller, darker green at the top, and I'll blend them in so that there is a gradual change in the colours, and I'll be doing that for both sides. For those colours, I'm going to choose my poor little cream Faber-Castell here. It looks really pathetic, doesn't it? And it's had a bite taken out of it. But still got plenty of colour in there, so we'll use that. The middle, I'm going to go for a, let's see, I'll do another Faber-Castell. This one is the yellowish green. Another bite taken out of it. And for the tops, I want a duller green that's a bit dark, but not too dark. So I might go for, let's have a look. That one is the permanent green olive. So I'll test these colours out just to show you what I mean. My bit of paper, put a bit of this very light coloured creamy colour, and then the middle of the stalks will be this sort of dullish medium light green, and then the tips of the stalks will be this darker colour. Okay, so that's the effect I'm looking for. Let's begin. Start with this poor tiny little thing. I'm just going to take it and colour in the bottom of these grass stems. Now you will recognise this way of colouring grass from my previous video where I demonstrated colouring in Anamorphia. The only difference being it's a different book and I'm using a different brand of pencils, but the principle is still the same. I'm going in heavy down here at the base, and then I'm feathering up lighter as I go up the stalk. And I'll do both of these, I should say both sides of these, and then I'll move on to the next colour. There, that's the yellows down. I'll go for this green now. As you can see, I'm just blushing it into the cream at the bottom to merge it in a little bit. If I'm not 100% happy, I'll go over a bit more with the cream to help merge it in. I'm not pressing very hard. I'm not pressing as hard as I have to with the cheaper pencils, and blending isn't as problematic either than it is with the cheaper pencils. But as you can see in my previous video, you can do this with cheaper pencils. It works just the same and you'll get more or less the same effect. Right, now I'm going to take my cream colour pencil again and go over and just blend in a little bit more. It's a very subtle effect, but for me it just helps to smooth out the blending. It pushes the green colour a little bit more across and into the yellow colour and makes the colour transition slightly smoother. over the other side. I'm going to have to start using a pencil hold of this one. Okay, right, we'll get on to the next colour, which is my permanent green olive. And I'll need a sharper tip. It isn't quite sharp enough to get into those real pointy bits. There, that's better. And I will start with this side. Again, I'm colouring in deeply at the end, and then I'm flicking it down here into the lighter green to blend it in. And as you can see, just using these three colours, and we've got some interesting looking grass. Okay, that's one side done. Let's cross over to the other side. That's our grasses done. It's time to choose the next colour. I think what I'll work on next is this little hanging, what would you call it? these vines and leaves that hang over the top. I've decided for these leaves across the top, I'm going to go for a brighter green. The green I've chosen is a Derwent Artist May Green. You may not own a set of Derwent Artist pencils, in which case just choose a bright green that you like out of the pencils that you already have, unless you've decided to do this in a different colour, in which case go along with your own choice. To do these ones, I'm going to just colour in, let's think now, I'm going to do the centres of the pencils, fairly dark in the centre and feathering out of these leaves. Did I say pencils? I meant leaves. Then I'm going to take a different pencil. This one's a dark one, another Derwent Artist. This one's mineral green, sort of a coolish dark green. And I'm going to go around the outside of it darker and then bring it into the centre and kind of mix it there. So the leaf has got a light centre and a dark outline. And I'm just going to flick in the little fold in the middle. There we go. And I'm going to do this for all of these leaves. Next I'm going to work on these reeds, but I don't want green to dominate the top altogether, so I want to introduce some different colours. So the colours I've decided to use are a couple of browns for the stems of these leafy reed type structures, and to colour the leaves themselves I'm going to use a kind of a goldy yellow and this peachy pinky colour. Now the names of these colours from the Derwent Artist range is Deep Cadmium, Pure Vermilion, the darker brown I've got here is a Van Dyke Brown, and from the Polychromos range is Raw Umber. Once again, just choose the pencils that you find match the colours you want to use from your collection. Now to do the reeds, I'm going to do the top part of the reeds lighter coloured. I fade it out, and then I'll take the darker brown and pop that towards the base, just to give a little bit of a colour gradient going up the stem. And I'll do the same with this one. And over on the opposite side of the paper. Again, heavy at the top and then feathering out towards the bottom so that I can mix the second colour in and create a smooth gradient. Okay, that's the browns done, and we'll start with these, the yellow and the pinky colour. Now what I want to do with this is have the yellow at the base of the leaf and have it just gently merge into the pinky colour at the tip to give the leaf an interesting colour gradient. Now I've done the yellow, I'll put in this pinky colour. Now I like to pick up the original lighter colour and just go over it a bit more, just to merge it all in. I don't know whether you can see it, but where the pink and the yellow cross, I'm getting an orange, which looks quite nice and helps to bridge the yellow and the pink together. As always, when working with these very small areas in a drawing, you need very sharp points to your pencil. Next I'm going to work on these little reeds. So with these I'm going to pop a little bit of ivory, that's the polychromous ivory right at the base. It's a bit hard to see because this ivory is almost identical to the colour of the book paper. But it will affect any pencil that's put on top of it. Next I'm going to use the dark Naples ochre, which is kind of a dark, sort of slightly brownish yellow. Going over the cream will give it a nice light yellow colour and it blends really well. I'll put this in the centre of these little flower heads on the reeds. And finally on the tips I'm going to use a burnt sienna, again another polychromous, and it's kind of a dark, dull, sort of cool brown colour. I'll just flick that onto the tips. Now we'll finish off these overhanging leaves. Again, I'm going to start with a lighter green and colour in the base of each leaf where it joins to the stem. And this is the earth green yellowish in the polychromous. I'm picking out the leaves that look similar and giving them similar treatment. Here, these little grass stems here that seem to be hanging down, I'm just going to colour in the base. Okay, now, well, that one looks good. Okay, this is another do an artist pencil. This is sap green. And I'll use that, it's a darker green, slightly bluish tinge, and I'll use that to complete the leaf tips. And I'll do the grass with this too. Okay, now I want a little bit more colour up here, I think. So I'm going to lash out and make these more roundish looking leaves a sort of a purpley colour, I think. Let's have a look. This is polychromous magenta. Yeah, I like that. It's a sort of a dark, really dark purplish pink, but it's not sharp enough for me. So this is my little colouring container or sharpening container. And I know people say that you've got to hold the pencil in the other hand to sharpen and turn the sharpener, and that does work for some people. Some people have problems with breakages, find that solves the problem. I could never get the hang of it, so I put it in this way and just use my right hand and left hand to sharpen. By the way, I found out you can get left-handed sharpeners the other day. A friend of mine brought one to a colouring club. Okay, nice and sharp. Now these, I think I might go light first. Put a little bit of this poor little cream at the base. You'll notice when I'm doing leaves, I don't like to just do them one colour. I like to choose two colours and merge them in together. I think it makes the leaf look more dynamic, even with these tiny little ones. Okay, now let's give it a little splash of colour here. It's nice and sharp, so hopefully I won't go over the edges. And because it's sharp, I don't have to push very hard at all. I've just got to run the pencil tip over the paper to get the colour off. Thinking that looks almost identical to the purple grapes we bought from the supermarket. I'll have to remember that. Okay, now I might do the same on the other side, I think, and I'll use these bigger leaves. Now this big one that hangs down, I think I'll make it a darker bluish green. So what have we got? This is deep cobalt green from the Polychromos range, and that's a real bluish looking green. So I'll do that, and what shall I do it with? How about this one? This is Do an Artist Juniper Green. So if I put that at the start, hey, that's not too bad. I might use that. Okay, I'll put the juniper green on first. Now this juniper green is a kind of greyish looking green, grey bluish looking green. It's a bit of a muted colour. Actually, I rather like it. Again, if you're following along, you can just choose another colour, and you don't have this particular colour, just go along with the other greens that you've used in the past. It's one of those things, having a large colour choices. You can get something similar in the Marco Refine pencils, the 72 pack. Just nutting in that. And here's the deep cobalt green, which is a really dark, very bluish, kind of a, not quite a teal colour is it, but it's a very bluish green colour. Yeah, that looks good. I might continue this onto these little bits at the sides here, just to fill them in. And these are way too small to be able to create a colour gradient, at least for me. So I'm just going to colour it in with the cobalt green. There, and that's all the foliage drooping down across the top. Next, I'm going to work on the family of ducks and the little insects flying over the top of the pond. For the insects, I thought we would use a lighter blue. This one is a light phthalo blue in the Polychromos range, and I'm just going to use the sharpened end to tint the wings right where they come up against the body of the little insects. Now take my white, which is just the plain white polychromos, and give that a good rub. And what I'm doing is I'm just softening the blue and spreading it out a little bit and filling in the wings with white. This will give it a bit of a translucent look. And I used blue because the background behind the wings will be blue, and as the wings are translucent, the blue will show through. Finally, for the little bodies of the insects, I'm just going to use a warm medium grey. I think they need a little bit more. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a darker blue. This is Prussian blue. And I'm just right at the base. I'm just going to put in a teeny bit more colour. There we go, now I'm happier. Those little insects were looking just a little bit too dull. Just right at the tip, a tiny little millimetre of colour. There. That's made me happier. Okay, now we're up to the ducks. Now ducklings, pretty easy to choose the colours for those. Ducklings are generally, well, I think domestic ducklings you see them as yellow. Wild ducklings have a bit more black down them. I guess it depends on what colour they're going to be. Don't know much about ducklings, but I think if we put yellow in to start off with, and I'm just using the cream again, this poor old cream. You can see why it's so short. I use it a lot. I'm just going to run some cream across the centre of the ducks underneath the wings. And now I'm going to use the cadmium yellow in the polychromos range. This is just a bright yellow. It sort of pretty much matches any standard bright yellow that you'll get in any set of colours, set of pencils. Add a little bit more. I want to pop a little bit of burnt sienna. Let's put that at the base of their little bills. They're just a little bit too small to fiddle around with, I think. Just put a little bit of brown at the base here, and this is just for shading. Right, I'll take an orange. This is a cadmium orange, so it's a lighter orange. And I'll just put that over the brown so I can create a gradient from the bright yellow to the brown to suggest shadow. Right, now those wings. The little feathers that start to appear at the end of a duckling's wings are generally sort of whitish, aren't they? So I'll leave them light and I'll just go above the tips of the wings here and put in the yellow. Right, now I think I'll finish the whole of the ducklings off with a little bit of cream over the top. Run that cream over everything to bind it all together. There we go. That looks kind of interesting. That orange. There. Now the bills. I'll use the Naples yellow just to complete the little duck bills. There, okay, there's our ducklings done. Now on to the mother duck. Now, let's think, what can we colour her? It's a bit of a fantasy world, so I don't know if I'll stick to any realistic colours. I think if you want to, you could Google pictures of ducks and see if you can find one that you like that you can copy. But I think I might just make mine up as I go along here. So I'll start with a, let's have a look. I like that colour. We'll start with that one. I'll make her a light brown duck. So I'll pop that one in. And that is a raw sienna in the Derwent range. One thing you'll notice is that with these colours, they can be totally different from manufacturer to manufacturer. A raw sienna in one pencil might look quite a bit different from a raw sienna in another pencil. At least that's what I've found. Okay, I'm going to go in for a burnt sienna now with the polychromos, which is a dark brown. I'm going to put this on the wings. You can make your ducks any colour you like. I'm going to do this. I just had an idea. I'm going to put a stripe through her eye like that. I like that. That's good. Venetian red. Okay. I might use that on top of this raw sienna. I like that. Yep, definitely. It's more of a reddish colour. So brown, but it's got a reddish tint in it. I'm just going to leave a little bit of very light colouring at the top. Just a little bit of white, I think. Now to add a bit of depth to this brown, I've got a purple colour here. It's called Imperial Purple, and that's by Derwent as well. And what I'll use that for is to create a shading just at the base of this wing, and that will give this little piece a bit more pop. It sounds funny shading purple onto brown, but using different colour combinations can sometimes make the picture look that much brighter and more interesting. And speaking of which, you know what, I'm going to differ from the usual female ducks looking a bit dull, and I'm going to add some green to her wings. I'll use the deep cobalt green again. I like that. I'll just put it right down the bottom here on the underside of each feather and lightening up as I go up. So the dark side at the bottom is the bit in shadow, so you see the darkest colour, and then lightening up to white at the top where the sun is reflecting off her feathers. Yeah, I like that. No, I won't put it there. I was just debating whether to put it there, but I think that might be too much. You know what I might do with that though, is I'll grab my Imperial Purple and I'll stick that there instead. There you can see what sort of purple it is. It's a really nice purple. There you go, that's a much more interesting looking duck. Now get a, what's that one? That's oops, roll that in. That's the water green, which is one of my favourite colours from the Derwent Artist range. And I'm just going to lie that over the top of the cobalt green. There we go. Now I'll continue with the raw sienna from the Derwent range, which is a nice sort of tan brown colour, light creamy tan brown colour. And go underneath the duck. Now the impression I want to give with this is that the duck is, the mother duck is this tan colour, but she's got a white underneath. So I need to leave it white, but then I've got the dilemma where this is supposed to be in shadow as well. So a couple of things to think about here. She's on the water, so light's going to be coming from down here, striking the water and striking her underside. You might have seen when you're down the docks, boats, and you look in the water on a sunny day and the boats have got a reflection from the water, sort of these little white waves dancing along them. The underside that's pointing towards the water. And that's kind of what I want to get with her. So what I'll do is I'm just going to use this to represent the light that is bouncing from the water onto the mother duck, and I'm going to put that on her underbelly there. And I'll continue that on her belly under the water. Even though she's not green, she's white, that's the colour that the light striking the water and bouncing back onto her is creating. I could do this with the ducklings as well, but with their darker yellow colour, I thought I'd just get away with the brown. Plus you can't see anything underneath the water with them, and you can with her. Okay, now let's do her bill. I might make it a little dark at the tip with a dark brown. And I'll use this cadmium orange to complete her bill. Now this little point at the top here, teeny little piece you can see there, that's actually called a sear. And I'll colour that in the dark brown as well. Okay. Now she's carrying some little reeds for her ducklings to eat, so we'll colour those too. I'll get a nice, what's this one again? This is the polychromos green olive. And I'll make the tips of these, you have to have very sharp pencils for this, make the tips of these green. And I'll lighten up to a lighter green at the top. Now the mother duck, I just want to put a little bit of shade underneath where her head connects to her neck. And for that I'm going to use a bluish grey pencil. It's actually called blue grey, and that one's by Derwent as well. I like this one. This is one of my favourite pencils to use for shading. It's not quite a grey, it's not quite a blue. I'll put that under her wing as well to suggest some shading under her wing. This is one of these pencils that if you're buying open stock pencils, you just want a few colours to buy that will supplement any other pencils that you've got. If you haven't got this colour or a similar one in your set, I thoroughly recommend getting it. It's such a useful colour. There, and there's the shade, and I'll do the same with the wings on the little ducklings, just to give them a little shade. There we go. And that's our mother duck. Let's make her a little bit shaded under here. Just a teeny tinge. There. I'm happy with that now. Now that I have all the features of this little section of the drawing completely coloured, I'm going to work on the background. This is something I get asked a lot, of how I go about doing my backgrounds. Now, I like to do it as a colour gradient, starting with one colour at one end and gradually moving up through different colours to give it a very interesting effect. With it being the sky and with it being a sunny day, I'm going to go for the blues. Now, I want to start with something light at the bottom and go up into a darker blue, just as you would see if you looked at the horizon on a sunny day. You'd see that it was lighter at the horizon and it goes up into a darker, deeper blue towards the top. So I've got to start off with the lightest colours I've got, and that means testing them. So here's my bit of paper, and here's a bunch of blue pencils, and we need to try them out. So here's a piece of paper, and we'll start off with the lightest one. And the lightest one I've got here is the Derwent Artist Sky Blue, and that's quite light. I think you can barely see that. Next I have this poor little thing. It's polychromos, but if I take it out of its little holder, unscrew it. That's all there is of it. This has been worked to death, but I won't put it out to pasture just yet because there's that much good colour left in it. So I'm using this pencil extender, placing it in there and screwing it in so that I can continue to use it. Now let's see what colour it is. And that's a darker colour, that would go well into that. This is turquoise blue, which is another Derwent. It's sort of got a bit more of a greenish tinge, and it's basically the same colour depth as that, so I won't use this one. Next I've got Faber-Castell, that's a light phthalo blue. Okay, that's a problem. That's very blue, isn't it? It makes these ones look kind of greenish. I can do that, I'll have a go at that. Next one is light blue. This is another Derwent. Yeah. Okay, that's actually pretty much the same as that, isn't it? Okay, and I have here a oriental blue, which I love. It's one of my favourite colours in the Derwent range. Let's see why. It's beautiful. Okay, now we're going to have a bit of a jump between here and here, aren't we? Let's see if we can do that. Bit of experimenting here before you start committing to paper. Just colour in a little bit, fade it out, see if I can make this work. This one. This is the light phthalo blue. Just gently brush it down there and get heavier and heavier as you come out. Yeah, I think that can work. And let's bring in the oriental blue for right at the top. Yeah, I can do that. Okay, now let's hold it up against here and see if that works. Looking at this now with the picture, I'm thinking that this colour here may interfere. I don't know. Still thinking about that. I'm not entirely sold on this because it looks a little bit greenish to me. I'm thinking I might just go with this one, the aquamarine, or I think it's called, what is it, in the new range, the light cobalt turquoise is the same colour in the polychromos. This is an old polychromos, so it's the same colour, but it's called aquamarine. The new one is called light cobalt turquoise. Let's see. Yeah, you know what, I'm going to go for it. I'll use that. So that was that colour. Starting off with the Derwent sky blue, which is lighter still. Okay, let's go for it. Let's see what happens. Alright, now first thing, I'll need to sharpen this. It's just a bit too dull. Okay, that's my 5 blue pencils sharpened. We'll start from the lightest and work our way up to the darkest. Lightest here and going up to the darkest there. I'll start with the lightest first. I'm going to blush in a little bit around the duck's rear ends here. This is how I do all my backgrounds when I do the backgrounds in pencil. So I'm looking at just colouring this band here. About, not quite an inch, perhaps about 2 centimetres in the lightest colour. Making it fairly dense down the bottom and then getting lighter as I go up. Little circles. I find little circles are the best way to colour because then you're not left with the streaky pencil marks. Now, because this is a light colour, very, very light colour, you can barely see it, but it is tinting the page. I'm just going to go up perhaps to the line of the duck's beak, mother duck's beak. Dark at the bottom, or heavy at the bottom. You can't really call this pencil dark, can you? And then fading up. Right, once you're satisfied, move on to your next colour. And for me, that will be this one, the aquamarine in the old polychromos, or as I said before, the light cobalt turquoise in the new ones. Now, if you don't have light colours, very light blues, you can get more or less the same effect by using a combination of your lightest blue pencil and white. So lay down your lightest blue pencil as softly as you can and then pop white over the top and you'll get something that looks a little bit similar. Gradually increase the depth of your pencil and lessen the amount of white that you use as you go up the page. If you have a nice selection of colours to use, we'll go for that. Now you can see here I'm dipping in between the reeds. I'm sort of keeping it a band around about this height going across of this slightly darker light blue. It's a bit tricky to get them all looking even. I'm just going to keep flicking across your page and checking how deep you've got the colours in certain areas and darken up a little bit, touching here and there. It's a bit fiddly, but I think the end result looks great. And you can see I'm not really pressing at all. I think the secret of these backgrounds is just don't press. Not until you're ready to put your last layer on, and then only if you think it's necessary. Okay, now this next bit will be a bit trickier because I've got a bit of a colour change here. I'm going to a more bluey blue, getting away from the sort of warmer greenish blue. So I'll start off just by very gently blushing in using the side of the pencil. Okay, now I'm going to go in a little bit darker and work around this foliage. A bit tricky and time consuming colouring around all these leaves, but it can also be very relaxing. Don't try to do this in a hurry. There we go, pretty happy with that. I'm ready for the next colour now, which will be crossing over to the Derwent range, light blue. Again, I'm just blushing it in. I'm going to press a little bit firmer than normal to get the colour to go over the previously applied colour from the polychromos pencil, but not really having any trouble. It's pretty similar, isn't it? Much of this before I transition into the final colour, but I will lay down a base layer of this colour before I put the darker one on, because the darker one is quite a bit darker and I don't want it to be too intense a change right at the top. Actually, I'll give it a little go now. I'm curious to see how this last layer is going to look over the top. As you can see, this is the Oriental Blue from the Derwent range. It's a gorgeous colour pencil, this, and I just want a little halo of dark right at the top of this dome. Fade it out as I go down the sides. I like that. There, I think I'm happy with that. So you can see we've created a nice gradient from this very pale blue up to a very deep, lovely, rich oriental blue, and we've completed this little section of the scene. And that concludes today's episode of colouring this pond picture from Johanna Basford's Enchanted Forest. I'll hope you'll join me next time when we look at colouring this section of the picture. Over the coming weeks, we'll colour in each section until we've completed it. I'm anticipating it will be approximately 5 to 6 instalments. And until next time, happy colouring!